Hi YouTube, welcome back to Kind Heart Homestead. I'm here with Angie and Cedar. We're here for a county fair, but while we're here, we want to go ahead and try to install the windows. So stick around and I hope you enjoy this video. Thanks. So if you watched the last episode, you know that I got the window framing most of the way complete. And what I mean by that is that I have the rough openings framed, but I have yet to cut through the sheathing and complete the nailing around the perimeter framing. And then obviously there's some waterproofing and taping to do before I put the windows in. But I did not want to open up the sheathing and expose the space to rain and the elements until I knew for sure that I would have time. Since Angie's here to help me, I want to take advantage of this opportunity so we can have a two-person team. One person holds the window while the other person makes adjustments and finishes off the screws. So I need to figure out how to cut this. I've seen different people use different techniques. One example, a more modern approach, is to use a router. I don't think I have the right bit for that, so let me show you what I'm gonna do. I have my Milwaukee reciprocating saw here with a very long demolition blade. I only have one of these, so I need to be careful with it. But the reason I need this long one is because I need a blade long enough to clear this 3.5 inch framing. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to go through at an angle, and that's gonna make it a bit sloppier. Another idea would be to transfer these measurements to the outside, snap a string line, and do some sort of plunge cut, either with this tool or with a handheld circular saw. I think this is gonna be the quickest way, so bear with me while I give this a try. It was a bit sloppy and a bit loud, but it got the job done. The edges are a bit rough though, so I think I might want to sand them or maybe use my router to try to clean it up a bit. Well, I just crawled out of the shipping container. I was determined to go see what kind of router bits that I had. And I found this on my old workbench, router bit with a bearing. That way I can ride this against the rough opening framing. And I can at least use it to clean up this edge. But for the next window, I think what I might do is cut a small hole just big enough for this router bit to fit through and try to cut out the whole window. So let's see how this works. All right, let's see how this works with the router instead of the reciprocating saw. Wow. So ironically, this made a huge mess, but it's the cleanest cut. This thing feels sanded smooth, at least in one direction, the direction that the blade turned. As long as you go in this clockwise fashion, because of the way the blade spins, it cuts almost like butter, I would say. The only problem is if you push too hard, you try to take out too much material at once, it will get hung up and overload the tool. I don't know if there's a better bit that I could use for this. I'm assuming there is. I think this is just a regular woodworking blade that I'm using, and it's probably not meant to cut through this type of OSB material, especially with this laminated piece on the top. That might make it work too hard, but definitely with a high output battery, it cut a lot smoother. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to clean this up a bit and finish the nailing pattern. I'm pretty pleased with how these window openings turned out, but before I tape them, I want to do a test fit with the windows, and not just one window tested to each of the 3 openings. I want to test an independent window in each opening, whatever window is going to stay in that one, just in case there's any variation in the size. And if it's too tight, I might have to go back around with a saw or a router to make the opening bigger. I hope that's not the case, but as an amateur framer, who knows what could happen. This is a pretty exciting moment. All 3 windows fit in their respective openings. They are a bit tight, probably tighter than the manufacturer intended because I made the rough openings slightly too small, but they do slide up and down just a little bit, and that's probably good enough to be able to make them level. At least I hope it is. So now I need to go ahead and flash the openings. And what I mean by that, let me show you, is a combination of zip tape and zip stretch tape. You've seen me use zip tape before. This is intended to cover all of the seams of the zip sheathing to make sure that it's a pretty weather-tight seal. Similarly, the stretch tape is designed to wrap around the sheathing onto studs to essentially flash these joints to make sure that any water that penetrates behind the window flange does not actually touch the wood, but instead is able to drain back out to the outside. And the reason this is called stretch tape is because after you do this, this inside corner, you can stretch it around to the outside. So I'm gonna start off with the regular tape, just in the flat areas, and I'm gonna conserve the stretch tape. And this is a tip I got from Awesome Framers. Shout out to them. If you're interested at all in construction, they're the ones to watch. They typically have a 2 to 3 man crew building entire houses. It's really fascinating to watch, and that's where I learned a lot of my, I guess you could call them tricks from, including the router cutout of the windows. His tip was to conserve the stretch tape because it's so expensive, and just do it where you need it. So I'm gonna open this up and get started. So the rolling is probably the most important part of the zip tape installation. As far as I know, there is some sort of pressure reactive adhesive built in. And this tool is designed to apply that appropriate pressure. It is a bit rubberized and it compresses just enough to stamp the letter Z into the tape. And I believe that's how they can tell for warranty purposes if it was installed correctly. So I definitely want to put a lot of pressure behind this and roll it in multiple directions. So you might have noticed that my entire windowsill isn't covered. And that's not ideal. That's probably not the end of the world, but since I have the tape, I might as well do another layer. I could have spent more money to get a wider roll, but it's fine to do 2 layers. Now it's time for the stretch tape. I've never installed this before. I need to cut this factory end off. It's stuck to the paper. So actually, I think what I'm gonna do, since it's very hard to cut this stuff up in the air, is I'm going to cut a few strips. So hold on and I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. So the problem I faced was the stuff is so thick and so squishy that you really have to put a lot of pressure down. I don't know if there's a special tool to cut this, but what I did was I essentially pushed my square, you know, the thick edge with the overlap, down against, on the paper side, onto a spare piece of zip sheathing I have down here on the ground. And then I had to score it a bunch of times, and then finally I was able to get through this stuff. So like I said, this is my first time using this. I hope 6 inches is enough. If not, I'll know better for the next few windows. Looks like there's a little score on the back of this. I think that's so you can peel 1/2 off. Although I'm not entirely sure if I'm supposed to put the shorter end inside or outside. Let me check the wrapper and see if it says. All right, looks like they do the thick edge on the inside, which I already double taped, so it's not really a big deal. But I'd like to do it how it's intended, if I can. I'm gonna fold it in half to get it down into this corner. I'm gonna use my square to really dig it into that corner. This stuff's definitely tricky to work with. So now I'm gonna grab the inside corner first. Hold it out. I'm gonna work my way to the corners. Pull those out. Now I'm going to work it in with a roller. That looks really good to me. Now that I've done it once, hopefully it'll be easier going forward. I think 6 inches is plenty for this application because I've already flashed the bottom. Redundancy is fine, especially when you're dealing with waterproofing. And the intent of this is to shed water as if it were a shingle roof, where you start at the bottom and every subsequent layer overlaps the previous. So there's no way for water to get behind. That's it for the bottom. Now I'm just going to use the regular zip tape, fold it over the sides, just one layer. I'm not going to cover the whole framing like I did with the bottom. Well, that's it for this window. I love how this turned out. Now I'm gonna try to run through the other two before we install them.
I'm Angie Hart from Kind Heart Homestead, and we're going to install the windows in our solar shed.
It's time to test fit this window and check it for level. We're ready to caulk the windows now that we've test fit it. I'm using Big Stretch by Sashco. Here's a quick time lapse of the installation of the remaining two windows. As you can see, we get a lot more efficient as we repeat this process. I don't put any silicone in the bottom of the window, just to make sure there's a drainage solution for any water that gets trapped behind the flange. And after I get the silicone, and the window in place, we use a piece of cardboard as a shim just to make sure it's perfectly level. We can always remove that cardboard shim later. I just want to have something to take the weight of the window as I install these screws. And you might not be able to see it very clearly in this video, but I end up putting enough screws in to fill every other hole on the window flange. I think that's plenty to hold the weight of the window. These windows are not that big, and the framing is made of a pretty lightweight material. And with this big stretch, I could always go in and fill the rest of the holes later. But like I said, I think every other hole is perfectly fine. It's the next morning here on the homestead. Very pretty morning, great weather conditions. We're going to the fair later today, but until then, I want to try to clean up this construction site. As you can see, there's just tons of trash in here. All of the packaging materials from all the windows are here, and my tools are scattered all around from this window project. I need to get it swept and maybe even vacuumed if my portable battery pack can power the vacuum. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy this time lapse of the cleaning of the shed. Well, it's finally clean. We're expecting a large storm tonight, and we need to leave in the morning. The problem is, when we have the baby here, we have a lot of supplies in the tent. We have to be able to change his diaper. We have to have all of his outfits and toys. It's way more of a hassle to pick up and leave when it starts raining. So we're gonna sleep in here tonight. We're gonna go ahead and put the tent away while it's dry. I'll bring the tarp in here just to keep some of the dirt off of our gear. Seems like it's gonna be a nice night. Hopefully we don't have any leaks in the roof. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you wanna see the rest of this project, please go ahead and subscribe. Share this with your friends, press that like button and start a discussion in the comments. If you have any feedback about our structure here, we'll see you next time on Kind Heart Homestead. Thanks.